Good morning. Welcome to Scottsdale 360. This is a virtual learning series that focuses on the people, the policies, the programs that shape our city government and the community we serve. My name is Holly Walter. I'm from the city's Office of Communication. I will serve as your host today. Our presentation includes questions at the end and will be approximately 1 hour in length. So keep in mind, this is a quick and a very high-level overview of the topic today. You can submit a question at any time during the presentation because we will end the class with a Q&A session. And we will also provide the presentation you see today on our website. Following today's session, just go to the same page you visited to register. And the quickest way to find it is to visit scottsdaleaz.gov and then search Scottsdale 360. Additionally, at the very end, we will ask for you to complete a short evaluation to help us serve you better and meet your needs. But first, I have a question for those attending, and you can type the answer within the Q&A. But in which years did City of Scottsdale voters approve bond funding for capital projects? Was it A, 2000, B, 2015, C, 2019, D, all of the above, or E, none of the above? We'll take a look at your answers and we will share the correct answer later on in the session, but go ahead and just drop those answers. So today we are lucky to have City Engineer Alison Tymkiw. She has prepared a presentation providing a brief overview of how we are investing in our city through capital projects. And I'll share a little information about Alison. She's responsible for administrating the city's capital improvement program, and she manages the capital project management division, which is responsible for the planning, the design, and the construction of infrastructure improvements around our city. Alison has worked for the City of Scottsdale since 1998 and has previously held the positions of civil engineer, project manager, and senior project manager prior to her promotion to her current role as our city engineer. And prior to joining the City of Scottsdale, Alison worked for engineering, design, and consulting firms, first in Connecticut and then in the local Phoenix area. Alison holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Lehigh University, and she is a registered professional engineer in the state of Arizona. So without further delay, I will like to turn the time over to Alison.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Holly, for that introduction. My name is Alison Tymkiw. And as Holly had mentioned, I am the city engineer for the City of Scottsdale, and I am going to do a brief overview of our capital improvement plan and give you some details on some of the projects that we're currently working on. So with that, I'll start off with the first slide. What is a capital project? So a capital project helps maintain or improve a city asset, often called infrastructure. To be included in the capital budget, a project must meet one of the following criteria. It is a purchase of major equipment assets costing $50,000 or more with a useful life of at least 10 years, or it is a new construction, expansion, renovation, or replacement of existing facilities or of an existing facility or facilities. The project must have a total cost of at least $10,000 over the life of the project. Projects can include the cost of land, engineering, architectural planning, and contract services needed to complete the project. Or it is a major maintenance or rehabilitation project for existing facilities with a cost of $10,000 or more and an economic life of at least 10 years. How are capital projects funded? We have various funding sources throughout the city. One way projects are funded is through the preserve. and that is city sales tax for land acquisition and amenities. Another way is drainage. It's the county flood control district, IGAs, or the $3.95 per month stormwater fee. which incidentally has been approved to go up to $495 in 22-23. It could be tourism projects, tourism development funds, bed tax, and the Princess Revenue Fund tourism projects. Street projects are funded by the city 0.2% transportation sales tax, the voter approved 0.1% increase, MAG Prop 400, regional sales tax, and federal grants and IGAs. Water and wastewater projects are funded through the water enterprise. So we have water and wastewater rates and development fees to fund those projects. Aviation is also an enterprise, and the user fees, the lease fees, and FAA grants all fund the aviation projects. Parks, libraries, community centers, police, and fire, those are funded by generally the general fund. The Capital Improvement Plan is a 5-year program that addresses the capital needs of the city. It contains a listing of the projects, the purchases that have been adopted by the City Council for inclusion in the program, the funding sources for each of the proposed projects and purchases, and a timetable for the design and construction or implementation of each plan. So we just went through the approval cycle for the 5-year plan, and it was adopted by the City Council in June. So the funding will be available on July 1 in the new Capital Improvement Plan. This is a breakdown of the budget and the funding for the next 5 years. As you can see here, the water projects and the transportation projects are the majority of the funds. And again, that's why water obviously is the enterprise. So there's a lot of money available there for water projects, and then transportation with the sales tax, as well as contributions from county and federal funding helps fund those. And then the remainder of the projects, they're a smaller section of the chart. And a lot of these projects, including several community facilities projects and several public safety projects, will be funded through the bond 2019, which I will explain a little bit later in the presentation. So this slide shows, I'm going to start talking about some of the projects that we have either in construction or design. And this slide shows the Osborn Road Improvement Projects. This project is located on Osborn Road from Scottsdale Road to Hayden, and it includes the construction of bicycle lanes and sidewalks along this segment, and it includes a connection to the Indian Bend Wash Path, and it also has a roundabout at the intersection of Osborn and Miller. The project is currently under construction now, and it is scheduled to be completed by the beginning of 2023. Okay, the next project is the Raintree Drive Extension Project. This project is under construction. It is funded by the Transportation Sales Tax and MAG 400. It is located on Raintree Drive between Scottsdale Road and the Loop 101 freeway. This project is intended to provide a direct connection from the Loop 101 to Scottsdale Road through the airport park. We are planning roundabouts at 76th Place and Redfield, and one at Hayden and Raintree. The next slide shows the construction. So this is at 76th Place and Redfield. This is actually the construction of the roundabout that's happening right now. These pictures show the base pavement that was already installed, and I think the next one shows the actual roundabout at the intersection of 76th Place and Redfield. So one picture shows it under construction, and then the next picture shows it a little bit further along, and you can see the landscaping in the center of the roundabout. And like I said, we still have to do final pavement, and after final pavement, striping will be installed as well. Okay, the next project is another transportation funded project, and it is Pima Road improvements from Pinnacle Peak Road to Happy Valley Road. This project is going to increase the capacity of Pima Road to include additional travel lanes in each direction with a raised median a raised landscape median, curb and gutter, bike lanes, an 8-foot sidewalk on the west side. And it actually ties into the Happy Valley Road project. The two projects have been designed and constructed and will be constructed simultaneously. And specifically, we're doing some intersection improvements at Happy Valley Road and Pima. The next slide shows the cross section of Happy Valley Road. Happy Valley Road will also consist of capacity improvements and include an additional travel lane in each direction with raised landscape median, curb and gutter, bike lanes, and an 8-foot sidewalk on the north, a 6-foot sidewalk on the south, along with an unpaved trail. This Happy Valley section also includes roundabouts. We have 2 roundabouts. One will be at the intersection of Golf Club Drive, and the other will be at the intersection of Alma School Road. So these show an aerial view of what the roundabouts will look like, as well as sort of a 3D picture of what they will look like. So not all of our projects are highly visible like our roadway projects. We also have several water projects under design and construction. This one specifically is the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Wells project, and this is building deep well recharge and recovery facilities to ensure long-term sustainability of the city's drinking water aquifer. The city uses this aquifer for both long-term and short-term storage of water, and it supports improved storage capacity to meet safe yield and enhance drought preparedness. So this actually is a picture of one of the wells that is currently being drilled. We have 4 wells as four separate sites, and the pipes to connect them to the water campus are all part of this project. One of the sites, site 1, is at the northeast corner of Miller and Deer Valley Road. We have another site at Legacy Boulevard and North Scottsdale Road. The first well is in the equipping phase, and the second one, the drilling is complete, and we're preparing plans and submittals for the equipping phase. The third site is located adjacent to the parking at the Scottsdale Sports Complex. That drilling is underway and should be completed next month in July. And then the final site at the northeast corner of Hayden and Mayo, we're actually still waiting for land acquisition for that site, and it is a portion of the previous state land sale that was done at that location. Once we acquire the land, we will start with the drilling of that well as well. We also have a project called the Park Restroom Replacement Project, and this is going to be replacing existing restroom facilities at several parks throughout the city. This rendering right here is the typical rendering of what the restrooms will look like. And the first park that we're going to replace the restroom at is Paiute Park. We'll also be working at El Dorado, Pima Park, Chaparral Boat Dock, Chaparral Park, Scottsdale Ranch, and Thunderbird Park. So improving our park facilities as well. Okay, next I'm going to highlight the Bond 2019 program. So for the Bond 2019, the first phase of this, the department submitted project requests during the annual CIP development. The project requests were reviewed by staff and then by the city CIP subcommittee. And then the CIP subcommittee refined the program, and then the city council voted on what was presented, and then the election was called. So we started out with 145 projects that were identified by the departments. And through that process, it became 67 projects, and then 58 projects were voted on and approved by the Scottsdale residents in November of 2019. The 3 questions that they voted on were question 1, Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services. There are 14 projects in that category, totaling $112 million. Question 2 was Community Spaces and Infrastructure. There are 20 projects in that category, also totaling $112 million. And then question 3 was public safety and technology for 24 projects, and that totaled $94 million. So we have 58 projects in total, valued at $319 million. So once the projects were approved, we had to develop an implementation plan and schedule. And the factors that we considered in doing this were timing. This reflects the priorities of the project, but other factors as well. For instance, some of the projects, such as IT projects, had to happen quickly because of the speed of technology and development. Some are tied to calendar events, such as the Civic Center Plaza project, which I'll be showing you soon, because that work needs to be done prior to the Super Bowl weekend in 2023. And then the other thing was project dependency. So does a project stand alone, or does it need to happen with other projects? For example, we have the police and fire training facility, which is actually 3 projects at our training location, which is located in Tempe. And these were planned to be designed and built together to make sure everything works together optimally. Another thing in the implementation, another thing to consider in the implementation was operating impacts. So we needed to look at, does the operating budget cover the operating and maintenance costs? And we needed to be considering the operating costs in our future budgets. Additionally, some IT projects had to happen early because technology is dated, but those also have annual license or maintenance fees. Obviously, new buildings and new sports fields also have additional operating and maintenance costs, and those all had to be considered in the implementation schedule. And then another issue to consider was whether the projects were funded with other funding as well, or just bond funding. So this is question 1 and the implementation schedule for it. So we're currently working on the McCormick Stillman splash pad. That is going to be starting actually in design. That was a little bit delayed due to the COVID-19. We have the granite reef and the cactus pool that are coming up in a few years out. There are some of the larger projects. Additionally, the Paiute Community Center is scheduled out closer to 27, 28, another one of the larger projects at $11 million. We have the Indian School Field lighting, which should be constructed here in the next coming months. We have the El Dorado pool heating project. We have the Thompson Peak Park Dog Park project, which I will highlight here in the next couple of slides. We have the Bell Road multi-use sports fields project, which I will also be highlighting, along with the Ashler Hills Park. And then we have a solar project that's coming up at Appaloosa Library, and then the Pinnacle Peak parking, office, and trails will be happening in the future. It does require some acquisition of land from the State Land Department, so we need to work through that process first. So the first project that I'm showing you here is the build the multi-use sports fields in the area of Bell Road. This is a $40 million project. You can see here it's actually 3 projects. One is the DC Ranch Community Park portion of it, as well as the Bell Road Sports Complex, and then the Westworld Sports Complex. So the Bell Road Sports Complex, as well as the portions of the offsite water at the DC Ranch Community Park, were phase 1, and phase 2, which is currently under construction, is the Westworld Sports Complex. This slide shows the design for the Bell Road Sports Complex. The fields are complete, and actually they were opened in February of this year. And these pictures show basically the turf on the fields, as well as the bottom left picture shows the construction that is currently being completed on the restroom and the support building. This should be completed this month. We're actually anticipating that the certificate of occupancy could be potentially later this week, possibly tomorrow. So that's the Bell Road Sports Complex. And the irrigation of the sports fields come from the irrigation lake at the DC Ranch Neighborhood Park. So here we built the lake, the pump station, and the required piping to bring the water to the fields. And the water is reclaimed for irrigation. And the actual park, the neighborhood park, DC Ranch Neighborhood Park, is currently still under construction and is expected to be open later this summer. Then the second phase, which I had highlighted, it's under construction now, is the Westworld Sports Complex. So this rendering shows the fields that will be constructed there. And then the picture shows what work is happening right now, basically grading. Part of this the current construction contract includes the parking lots, utilities, irrigation, landscaping, field construction, hardscape, and lighting. These fields are scheduled to be completed in the fall of 2023, and the construction of the restroom in the office building will be the final phase of that project, and it is also set to finish by the end of 2023. And then we have the Ashler Hills Park, which is located at Ashler Hills Drive and 74th Way. It's a $6 million bond-funded project. This project includes open turf areas, shaded playground, restrooms, lighted sport courts, 1 basketball and 8 pickleball, walking paths and trails, and a parking lot for approximately 70 spaces. This is the aerial view with the conceptual park amenities shown on it. The north arrow is actually to the right. So basically the amenities that you can see highlighted here are located towards the south end of the park, and then the natural area open space and walking trails are located to the north to buffer the existing residential area. This project is currently scheduled to go to the DRB, the Development Review Board, in July. We've had a lot of public involvement on this project. We had 2 public meetings. We were just at the Parks and Rec Commission meeting with this project last week. Here's a rendering of the entry bridge. So as you can see here, it's a bridge that would go from the parking lot onto the site. This shaded structure here shades both the playground area as well. The restroom building is enclosed under there. This is another view. This is from the lawn, one of the turf areas, and it looks back at the shaded playground area as well as the restroom building. This is another view. This is an aerial view from the southwest. So you can see over on the left-hand side of the screen where the lighted sports courts are, and then the shade structure as well as the turf areas. And we have another aerial view that looks from the northwest. So again, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen where the sport courts are, and then actually right beyond the sport courts, you can see a parking lot of an existing commercial development area. The sport courts are sort of nestled up against that area, so they get further away from the residential and less impact on the neighborhood. The next project is to add a dog park at Thompson Peak Park. This is budgeted at $4.6 million, and it's located at Thompson Peak Park and Hayden. It's adjacent to the existing Thompson Peak Park that's already there. We're looking to construct approximately 3.5 acres of off-leash developed turf area. The areas will be separately fenced and gated. There'll be a footbridge to the existing amenities at the park, and approximately 100 space parking lot will be constructed. We're currently in the design phase of this project, and construction is actually funded in fiscal year 24-25. This is the implementation schedule for question 2. So this shows all the current projects and when they're scheduled to be designed or constructed. The first project on the list here is the Civic Center Plaza, and I'm going to go into more detail on this project on the coming slides. And then you can see we have various projects and various stages. We also have, we're working on some plans for road and pedestrian improvements on 2nd Street in the downtown area. And we are also working on improvements to the Indian Bend Wash. We're working on replacing some of the Westworld horse barns to increase the rentable space up there. We also will be installing solar at our north courtyard, the city's north courtyard. We are building a new parking deck up there, and we will be installing solar in conjunction with that project. So the first project that I'm going to highlight is the Civic Center improvements. This project is budgeted at $33 million, and it actually includes another project, which is provide free public Wi-Fi at the Civic Center Plaza. That will be part of this construction. This aerial view shows basically all the grading work that was that occurred during the project. You can see a lot of the large mature trees were saved in place. Currently, it's under construction with storm drain, water and sewer nearing completion. Irrigation is in process. We have some critical path electrical work that's going on, and we're currently doing some planter and retaining walls on the west entry of this area. The intent of the project is to provide better pedestrian flow and construct permanent performance areas. This is actually the overhead rendering of what these spaces will look like when they're completed. As you can see here, we have the central lawn areas. There's a 360-degree stage in the middle of the central lawn. There's an east bowl, another turf area, and there's going to be a canopy and stage there as well. There's a children's garden. The love statue will be back. This is a perspective view of what it will look like when it's complete. These are some construction photos. These are some of the retaining walls that are being built right now. Obviously, a lot of dirt work and grading. This shows the 360-degree stage performance area that's in the center, and it has the capability to basically perform in any direction in the 360 degrees. Again, more earthwork and grading, which is currently occurring. Another perspective of what it will look like from one of the turf areas. You can see City Hall and the library, and then back in the distance is where the East Bowl will be, and then the love statue. Another rendering. This one shows the children's garden area. And more earthwork and retaining walls in that same area. This is a shaded seating area and the love statue in the background there. This is actually the East Bowl, and it is the covered stage. So not as exciting as that project. We do have a lot of infrastructure work that we do throughout the city. This is the repair lakes and irrigation at the Vista del Camino Park in the Indian Bend Wash. This is a two-phase project. The first phase of it is really to repair the underground irrigation at the location between Murray Lane to McDowell. That currently is in design. And then the next phase will be McDowell to McKellips. Will actually include more of the lake work. We're currently designing the project. We have a construction manager on risk, contract with a contractor on board to help us through the design and the pre-construction phase services on this project. Okay, this is a summary of question 3. The implementation schedule. There's a lot of IT projects that have occurred, as well as one of the big projects that we're working on is the police and fire training facility. As I mentioned, our police and fire training facility is actually located in the city of Tempe. It's east of Miller Road and south of Curry in Tempe. We have 3 projects. One is to replace the vehicle training track. One of the other projects is to expand the police training facility. And then the third is to build a new fire department training facility. We just have recently gone through some of the public hearing process through the city of Tempe, and we're working towards 60 and 90% design on both the police training facility and the fire training facility. This shows the proposed site plan, and so the items that are shown in red, which are numbered 2, 3, 4, and 5 on this slide. 2 is the new fire department training academy. And then the items marked 3, 4, and 5 are the new training burn props. And I can show you a little bit more detail on these, but these are actually live fire training facilities that the academy attendees go through. Highlighted in blue on this site plan shows the expanded police department training facility. There's going to be some upgrades to their shooting range, as well as upgrades to a lot of their classroom facilities and other amenities within the building, within the existing building. This shows the proposed fire training academy. It's a brand new building. And you can see the 3 proposed fire training structures that will be on site as well. This slide shows the proposed fire training academy. It's a view looking from the north, looking south. And then this is another view of the proposed fire training academy. And then this view is from the west, looking east. And just another view of the fire training academy on that site. And with that, that wraps up my presentation, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Allison. We did have a question, and don't forget, if you do have a question for Allison, just post it in the Q&A you'll see at the bottom of your screen. One of the attendees had a question about fixing potholes. I know this is an area of street operations who attends to this, but are street repairs oftentimes wrapped up within capital projects?
Well, yeah, so it is part of our street maintenance program to be doing that. However, a lot of times if we do have a transportation project that is coming up, sometimes that work gets deferred, knowing that we will be replacing the roadway with the project. So sometimes it might seem like streets are in disrepair for maybe a little bit longer than necessary, and that's because we don't really want to repave a street when we're going to go ahead and tear it up with a capital improvement project. Okay, great. And we can provide some additional information on how you can contact that area of the city if you have some concerns about a particular area of Scottsdale. And another question, how much, and I believe they are maybe referring to the aquifer, how much does this plan increase our overall water storage or collection? I actually don't have an answer for that, the specific answer. That's something we could look into and get back to you on. Okay. Allison, can you talk a little bit about, does the city design and build the projects themselves? How does that work? Yeah, so we have a team of project managers. We also have an in-house design group. So when we have a design project, generally we go out, we solicit through an RFQ, request for qualifications, to the engineering or architectural community to give us statements of qualifications, and we go through a selection panel. to hire an engineer or architect to design the projects for us. We also have the in-house design group. We have some engineers on staff that also do design work for us. And a lot of times they're doing maybe some of the smaller transportation related projects. They do a lot of intersection improvements for us, as well as some of the water line replacement, some of the smaller water line replacement projects for the city. So we contract out for the majority of our design, as well as we supplement with some of our in-house design. And then when it comes to construction, there are several ways that we construct our projects. We have a very robust job order contract program. So we have several contractors that are on board in different disciplines. For example, we have several water treatment plant job order contractors. We also have our job order contracts range to resurfacing. We have contractors on board to resurface existing sport courts throughout the city. So at any rate, it's more of a sort of an on-call type of way to procure construction. So we can go to those contractors to price out work for us, or at the same token, we can bid out projects, and we go through the design build process where purchasing will put out an invitation for bid for contractors to submit their bids on projects. And then the other way that we also solicit contractors for our projects is we also do what's called alternate delivery method of construction manager at risk. And that process is similar actually to hiring an engineer or architect, because we actually go out for a request for qualifications, and then the contractors are actually submitting their statements of qualifications, and then they're selected on a qualification based selection process, not a bid. However, once we do select a contractor in that method, in the CM at risk method, the contractor then is brought on early to help estimate the project. But when it comes time for the contractor to give us a price for the project, they're actually giving us what's called a GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price, and they go out and bid out separately all portions of the project. So they're going to go out and solicit bids from subcontractors, and then they're going to be selecting their subcontractors based on that bidding process. So that is another way that we procure our contractors to actually build our projects.
Thank you. And then how are projects chosen to be part of the 5-year CIP?
So we have just approved the CIP for 22-23. City Council just approved that in June. And the funds are available starting July 1 for those projects, the ones that are identified in the 22-23 fiscal year. And then we almost automatically start identifying projects for the next coming CIP planning process. So what happens is all of our departments, they go ahead and look at their needs, and they submit and prioritize their projects. And it goes through a whole process, a year-long process through the city. We have a capital management review committee, and we go ahead and look at all the projects that all the client departments have submitted, and they're prioritized by funding source. And then we bring, the first time in April, we bring the proposed CIP to City Council, and then City Council reviews it and comments, and then we go back again in May. And that's when they look at the tentative CIP. And then actually at the June council meeting is when they typically adopt the CIP for the next fiscal year, which starts July 1. So it's really basically a year-long process. Starting basically in July, we'll just start looking at projects with our client departments, and they will be prioritizing and cost estimating and planning for the next review cycle with the City Council.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And what about the process for projects that are voted on in a bond election?
So the bond projects that were voted on, again, we went through that whole implementation schedule and prioritizing of the projects. And that also was reviewed and approved on by City Council. But basically those projects were the same, were identified the same way. So the client departments were looking at their needs and like they would during the CIP process. And it was the same thing. They would submit and prioritize the projects. But the difference with the bond projects is we went through the whole public hearing process as well, brought it to the public and went back and forth between the bond subcommittee as well. And then when I think one of my slides had said we had started with 145 projects initially that had been identified by the city departments. When it went through the review cycle. Yeah, so originally it was 145 projects valued at $730 million. And then through this process with the CIP subcommittee and city council vote, it became 67 projects. And then that was presented to the voters and they voted on 58 projects to approve, which were
a lot of work working through that process.
Sure.
As a resident, can a resident submit a capital improvement idea?
That's actually a good question. The project idea, the projects all come from the specific client department. So I guess if a resident was interested in suggesting a capital improvement idea, they could email it to the city. I just don't actually know what the process for that would be. Okay.
I would think that the person could contact the department that would handle whatever that particular concern or project is, or maybe even reach out to our city council and share that idea.
I agree.
Okay, and then how long does it take usually to design and build a project?
It depends. Really depends. There's so many things that can go into that. Some of our smaller projects that you think the design and construction should be faster, they're not. So it's really not necessarily size dependent. Obviously, projects that don't require a lot of public involvement move along more quickly if they don't have to go through the whole planning process and the development review board. So we actually do have a lot of, underground infrastructure such as water line projects that aren't visible. So they don't have any component of them that have to be reviewed from an aesthetic perspective. So those projects typically can move along faster because the process is a little bit shorter. And we have projects like the Ashler Hills Park project, which is, a new park in the northern part of our city. And it does have a very large public involvement portion to it, as well as it requires a whole different planning process to occur because we need to go through a municipal use master site plan project, which we do for municipal projects that are over an acre. And it just requires a lot more public hearings. So we go through, with that, we would go through the, besides just regular general public meetings, we also go through public hearing with the Parks and Rec Committee, the Planning Commission, it goes to the Development Review Board, and it has City Council authorization. So that whole process during design just adds a lot more time. But then, the construction of that project could go pretty quickly. So it really just, there's a lot of factors that go into how long it takes to design and construct a project.
You did bring up an important element though, Alison, in the fact that residents do have the opportunity to provide input and share their ideas when we're working on various projects throughout the city. Is there anything else you can add about that, about public participation and how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do hold public meetings on our projects that are kind of have the visible aspect to them, such as our transportation projects, our parks projects, et cetera. It's been interesting, with the COVID-19, we did switch to doing a lot of our public involvement virtually. So that has been something new that we've done. I think that is really a great way to reach more people. But yeah, we do provide the citizens with the ability to have input on the project during design.
And I know with most of your projects, oftentimes, and by the way, for anyone listening, you can go to the city's website and look at these projects. And usually we will have a contact or a project manager or someone who's overseeing the project who you can speak to or reach out to get more information. Now, Alison, you've been here for a while. Do you have this, just a kind of fun question I have, do you have any favorite projects that you've worked on in your time with the city?
I do, yeah. I think a lot of the projects that have been really fun to work on are the parks projects. I did work on the McDowell Park and Aquatic Center, as well as the El Dorado Park and Aquatic Center. Those were really actually great projects to work on. I've done several neighborhood parks, and way back in, gosh, maybe the late 90s, the early 2000s, the Stonegate Equestrian Park. Those are really fun projects to work on because you really get to go through the whole design process and the public involvement process, and then actually see the project when it's completely constructed and used by the public. I mean, obviously, you see the same when you're doing a transportation project, or I guess on water projects, you don't necessarily see the result of those, but I really feel like those park projects are great because you can actually see them after the fact, and even 10 years after the fact, being enjoyed by the public and utilized by people, and just seeing what a great amenity it is for the city.
It must be fun to drive by something that you've had a hand into and see people enjoying
Yes,
it.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the term IGA. For those who may not be familiar, can you explain what an IGA is?
Yeah, so on projects, we generally, if we're working with another governmental agency on some sort of joint aspect of a project, we would have an IGA. So for example, a lot of our projects, if we're getting partial funding from, say, the Maricopa County Flood Control District, and one of those projects actually is one that I've highlighted in the presentation, which is the Pima Road, Pinnacle Peak Road to Happy Valley Road. So for this project, yes, we are adding an additional travel lane in each direction, but with the reconstruction of the road, we're also doing a lot of drainage improvements and improving the wet water crossings that occur. And with that, we have a regional drainage aspect to this project. So we are getting some funding from the Maricopa County Flood Control District for some of the regional drainage facilities that will be constructed here. So we did we will be entering into a intergovernmental agreement with the Flood Control District, and it just lays out the terms of the project and the funding and who's responsible for what. So we have that. We don't always have IGAs on our projects, but a lot of times, if, like I said, if we're working with another governmental agency, we will.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
With inflation and costs of products going up, have you seen an impact?
Yes, we absolutely have. We actually have changed our process of awarding construction contracts over the last 2 years. With so much inflation and availability of materials has been a challenge. So what we've been doing a lot now, when we have a CM at risk contractor on board and we're getting ready to go to construction, we've been doing multiple GMPs with the contractor. And a GMP, like I said, again, is the guaranteed maximum price. So what we have the ability to do is do a GMP with the contractor, say to order materials, because some of the materials for these projects, we just had one, the Dove Valley waterline project, and it's on Dove Valley Road, and it needed to be complete. It needs to be completed this summer because it goes right by a high traffic area, a high school, lots of traffic, and we really wanted to get it done. All the impact to the roadway of excavating for the new water line in the summertime when school was out. In order to do that, the project was still basically under design. We had to fast track the procurement, the purchase of the water line materials, because ductile iron pipe has like a 6-month waiting time to get, once you order your pipe, it's 6 months or to arrive on site. So we did an early GMP on that project to order the pipe. So once we started construction in May, when school got out, we didn't have to wait for the material. So that's something that we hadn't had to do in years past, and it's becoming a trend on most of our construction projects. We also have one at our North Corporation Yard currently. I had mentioned the solar at that location. It's a bond project, but part of the project is not a bond project. It's just improving the parking at our North Corp Yard, and it's building a new parking structure. And similarly with that, concrete is so hard to come by, and actually the purchase of the precast actual parking structure itself, we had to sort of pre-order that. So it puts it, a lot of our construction projects, instead of having one construction contract to actually build it, we're doing kind of these phased GMPs to actually be able to procure and order and receive the materials that we need in advance of the actual construction. So yeah, we've been definitely impacted.
Yeah, more challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't see any additional questions in our Q&A, so we may wrap up here a few minutes early, but thank you so much for joining us today, Alison, and going over those projects and explaining how this process works. And thank you to those on the meeting for attending today. We hope you've learned more about our capital project program and how this area works. If you haven't signed up already, I invite you to join us again July 7th for our government relations session. We will hear from our city's government relations director. He will talk about how we advocate for Scottsdale's positions on issues before the US Congress, the state legislature, and regional governing boards, as well as how he briefs the mayor and the council, the city manager, and senior management on complex intergovernmental issues. Hope to see you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us for another Scottsdale 360 session.